Good afternoon to all the participants and our two special guests today, Ms. Bindia Asar from Melbourne, Australia, and Ms. Ellen Cheng from Beijing, China. So today is the third session of the Margadarshak program for government school teachers from Sharda Educational Trust. As part of our endeavor to expose our mentees, because I call them mentees, all the teachers here, to the people, culture, and educational system of other countries. Today, our guest speakers, Ms. Bindia Asar and Ms. Helen Cheng, will take us on a virtual tour to China and provide us with insights into the elementary education system of China. As we know, China is our neighbor, but how much do we know about this great nation? I had been to Beijing, the capital of China, in 2014 on a business trip while I worked for IBM. A lot of misconceptions about this country were cleared from my mind during the week long trip. Now, a quick introduction of our guest teachers. Ms. Bindia Asar, who has spent more than 17 years in China as a teacher at Shanghai and Shenzhen. So, these are the two states in India, two provinces there in China. Currently, she is a lecturer at the University of Melbourne for the past 1 year. Ms. Helen Cheng works for Beijing Normal University as a professor and doctoral supervisor. So she has been involved in international education since the 80s. So she has a lot of experience, in the education sector. She has edited papers like a general study of Chinese traditional culture, a new era, general study of China, etc. So before I hand over to Bindya and Helen, I wish to introduce the four government school teachers here, starting with who joined first, Shweta, then Rupa. Can you all please on your video, Ambika and Priya. And we also have a couple of, as I mentioned, advisors and trustee, Ms. Uma Natraj and Ms. Anita Kamath, who is also the trustee of Sharda Educational Trust. So as I mentioned, you have about 45 minutes for your session, for your presentation. And this will be followed by a Q&A, question answer session for about 10 or 15 minutes. And I am sure the teachers have come prepared with a lot of questions for you. So now over to you, Ms. Bindya and Ms. Helen. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Ms. Helen, do you want to go first or shall I go first?
I think that you take the first.
Okay, no problem. So, a small introduction about me. So, I'm from India, I'm from Kerala. And after completing my master's, I got married and we were in Malaysia for 2 years. In 2002, we went to Malaysia. 2005, we were in China. And from 2005 to 2022, we spent a beautiful time in China with my family, and I got to work with many wonderful people there. So let me take you on a short trip of my experiences there in China. So my presentation is more of a foreigner's view of China, and I'm going to try and show you all the little things which I experienced there and try to give you a picture of China. So before moving to China, the only knowledge that I got about China was from watching Jackie Chan movies as a kid. So this is the picture which I had before moving to China. Yeah, this is what I had thought that China would be like before moving there. But I was surprised once I reached there. This is what I saw. So as you can see, the earlier slide and this slide, so it was nothing like what I had imagined. So let me show you the next slide now. So China, the world's second largest economy, is a rapidly developing nation with rich history and culture. It's known for all types of growth, economic, technological, and everyone in the world knows about China now. Now, we cannot talk about China without talking about its rich history. Yeah, so its rich history spanning thousands of years. So just like India, its history dates back to so many years. These are few of the very important and famous historical sites. So the Great Wall, Forbidden City, Summer Palace, Temple of Heaven, these all are in Beijing. Then these are few other I'm not going to talk about all of them, but these are the main famous top historical sites. So the terracotta warriors, that would be in Xi'an, in the city of Xi'an. Once we go ahead in the PPT, I'll talk more about terracotta warriors. But in general, these are the important names which you would see. So the Patola Palace would be in Lhasa. The Longmen Groats, that's in Luoyang, the Shaolin Temple, and the Magao Groats. Now, the Great Wall of China. So, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Great Wall is a series of fortification stretching over 13,000 miles. Yeah, it was beautiful. When once we went there and we saw it, it was just so huge that you feel that, okay, we are so small in front of it. Then again, visiting Forbidden City. What I loved the most was Terracotta Army. So there was this emperor, Qin Shi Huang, and he had built this vast army of life-size soldiers to protect the tomb, his tomb. Now, this, while digging and while the archaeological team, they found out this, and now the government has preserved it, and it is a unique archaeological find and a major tourist attraction. And this is in the ancient city of Xi'an. Now, the historical sites, we spoke about that, right? So that is something giving us of what China looked like in the olden days. But in China, you get to see everything. It's not just the history. If you like the city life, if you like a fast-paced life, then there are so many cities where you can go and enjoy this. So few of the top 10 largest cities would be Shanghai, Beijing, Tianjin, Chengdu, Wuhan, Shenzhen, Guangzhou. These are the top 10 largest. I would like to speak about two cities here because I've stayed there in Shanghai and in Shenzhen. So I'll speak a little bit more about Shanghai and Shenzhen. So once you talk about China, everyone has heard Shanghai and Beijing. Yeah. So let's know a little bit more about Shanghai. So everyone knows it as the most populous and wealthiest city in China. And all the world trade happens a lot there in China. It is the busiest port in terms of containers and cargo. And it has got two large airports, Pudong and Hongqiao. The world's fastest train. So the picture you see here on the right, that is the world's fastest train here, Maglev, whose speed is 300 kilometers per hour. And this is the other city where I was there. I was in Shanghai for 5 years and in Shenzhen for 12 years. So Shenzhen is located between Guangzhou and Hong Kong. And it is a very special place because before 1979, it was like a village. And after that, what the government did is it declared it as a special economic zone because it was very close to Hong Kong. And they wanted to attract foreign direct investment into the mainland as well. And because of that, what happens is now everyone knows about Shenzhen. So it is known for its manufacturing, industrial, technology products, you name it, you see all that in Shenzhen now. So this was about the main cities, the historical points. Now I'm going to talk to you about the culture and the traditions that I have seen in China. So numbers. For numbers in China, they think of some numbers as lucky numbers, some numbers as unlucky numbers. Now, these are the symbols, the things that you see on the right-hand side, these are the symbols for numbers. And then you also have some hand signs for numbers. So like 1 is E, 2 is R, 3 is San, 4 is Se, 5 is Wu, 6 is Liu, and so on, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, 8 is considered very lucky there. 8 is considered to be a very lucky number. And 2, 6, 9 are also considered lucky. But 4 4 is the unluckiest number in China. So can you see the picture here on your screen?
Yeah.
What do you see there? What is missing?
4.
Four, number 4.
Yeah, number 4 is missing. So because in China they consider that as the unluckiest number. So even on the lifts, you do not see 4. They would call it in some buildings they would call it as 3A or 3B or 5A, but they will not write the number 4 there. So and even when like in weddings, if you give 4, like 104, it is not considered very polite. Like in India, we give 101 rupees
Yeah.
if we have to give something, but there you cannot give 104. That would be very rude because 4 is not considered as a lucky number.
Okay. You are.
So in
you
that
want to ask?
slide there is no 9, ma'am. That means eternity is also there. So 7,
Yeah.
8 is also there.
9 will be there on the elevators. Just 4 is missing.
-1.
-1, we don't write ground there in China. We write it as -1.
Okay.
So, and then underground. So ground would just be 1. -1 would be the underground parking.
Underground. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
Now this is the, you see a link here. Later on, once you get the PPT, this link, you can see all the symbols that we were talking about here now, 1, 2, 3, 4. So all these symbols are explained in this link. So if you click that link, you will be able to see the video.
If the child born on 4th, what they have to do?
No, that is fine. We will be talking more about numbers, about Chinese zodiac now, once we move on to that. So like in India, we have all the Rashis, right? So let's look at what happens in China, how do they consider the Chinese zodiac. Now it is very interesting. The Chinese zodiac is represented by 12 zodiac animals. So they are in the order, they start from the rat. So rat, ox, tiger, dragon, rabbit, dragon, all these in that order. Yeah. Now, what does it represent here? So you see the year written next to it?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So that year is the year you are born in. So if you are born in 1988, then you're considered as dragon.
Oh.
So this year is 2025. Can you look up there and see where is 2025?
Snake.
Snake.
Yeah, so that's the year of the snake. So snake is associated with wisdom, charm, elegance, transformation. So people born in the year of the snake are believed to be intuitive, strategic, and intelligent. And so you can always look up into this picture and find out what is your year that you were born in. And then it has got its own, they connect that animal traits with this zodiac figure, and then they say, okay, so dragon is considered to be very powerful. So year of the dragon. So in that, like that, you have different ones.
What about
That
rooster,
is,
ma'am?
is that the reason for China? The another name is Dragon City. Sorry, Dragon Nation.
Dragon,
That is
they have a lot of all their stories, and in history there's a lot of this of dragons. They use that to show power as well. So it is very a lot of leadership. All that comes in using that dragon figure. Now, eating, very interesting. Eating practices in China. So what do you see in this picture here? This picture, what do you see?
Maybe non-veg.
Yeah, non-veg is there. Yes. What else do you see? Do you see single plate for everyone?
No.
No. So that is how
Everything is
so everyone gets one bowl of rice, but the main dishes are all kept on the table. And you see that this table, you can move it around. So the center table, on the table, there is a center table which you can move around, and everyone can pick up stuff from that. So it is very interesting, and it is very, very homely and very inviting type of atmosphere there. So everyone has got a bowl of rice, but for all other things, it is a common dishes on the table. And do you see spoons there?
Yes, ma'am.
But what are they using?
Chopsticks.
Yes, they use chopsticks. So they take the bowl of rice close to them and then they use chopsticks and then eat using that. And they're very hospitable. If you go to any like to any Chinese home or you go out with Chinese friends, they are very hospitable. They will feed you a lot. There's no limited food. It's always like a big banquet. They order so many things, and food and alcohol is there a lot. Now, this is the hot pot. So in hot pot, what they do is right now you can see a lot of veggies, but they do have a lot of meat as well in that. So it's a big bowl of soup which is being heated up, and then you can just put in all the veggies which you like, and it heats up. And then you take that soup, put it in your bowl, and then you have it. So, and very yummy. So at first I used to think, how will just this suffice? But it is continuously getting heated. The center bowl continuously gets heated, and then you have it. So, and they have a special spice. So that spice, if it touches your tongue, it like numbs your tongue. So it's called the Sichuan pepper. They use that in the hot pot. Then the main food of China, they have rice, noodles, tofu. They eat different kinds of meat, eggs. We only in India we eat egg burji, we eat omelette, and we have boiled eggs. So these three things I have seen in India. There might be more, but these are the three things that I've seen. And egg curry. But there you see it in different this. You also see it with vegetables. So tomato egg soup is very famous there. You see a lot of leafy vegetables, eggplant. Chinese eggplant are not the eggplants like we see in India. In India, we have the round eggplant or the long, thick eggplant. In China, you have long, thin eggplants. So the brinjal is thin and long. Very, very yummy. Then, these are some of the famous Chinese dishes. Yeah, I have given only few here, but these are the dumplings or the momos that we see. But they're nothing like what we have in India. They're quite different. There's not so much of spice. You see the small bowl here on this picture. So that has got soya sauce and vinegar and ginger garlic, and then you have it with that. So that's about food. Now this is the language. So do you see this picture on screen?
Yes, ma'am.
On that, do you see the da, the two letters da are written in different ways. I don't know if you can see the tones that clearly. Is it clear enough?
Yeah.
So the tone, those same two letters when joined together can be said in 4 different ways. So there's the first tone, which is a high tone, da. Then the second tone is like a question mark, da. The third tone is like the Indian Chandrakala that we have in Hindi.
Yeah.
So how do you think you would say that? How do you think you would say that da? The third tone. Give it a try. How do you think you would say that?
Shall I try? Do?
It would be, you see, you going from high, going low, and then going up again.
Da.
Yeah, you're going up, down. Miss Helen, you can correct us, okay? If we are no experts in this, you can always correct us. And the last one is just da, very fast one, da, going down. So these are the 4 tones that we use in Chinese language a lot. Now, these are few common words that are being used in China. So you see, it's like the written language is also very pictorial, very beautiful and very difficult to learn as well. So if they say if you have learned Chinese, then you can learn any language in the world. So just like Hindi and Sanskrit, they say, right? And on all the South Indian languages also, they say if you have learned that, then you can learn any language. Like I'm from Kerala, so they say Malayalam. So I think in the same way, it would be Tamil and Telugu. All these languages, they say, are very difficult languages. So Chinese here is equally difficult. Chinese calligraphy. So, writing with ink with a brush. So, this is considered to be very beautiful. They have a lot of all these paintings there in homes, in schools, in all the important historical places, also in museums. You see a lot of Chinese calligraphy there. Now, clothing. Like in India, we have our saris, our churidars, yeah, and the half saris for our special occasions, and a kurta pajamas, and a dhoti and mundu. Like that, in China, they have these beautiful costumes as well. The qipao, the hanfu, the tangzhuang, yichang, shani. So these are all traditional Chinese clothing. Normally, people usually just wear the Western clothing, but for Chinese festivals, you can see a lot of these traditional Chinese clothes. Very beautiful again. Now, Chinese tradition, this is something which was very interesting for me to know. So, when we have our engagement in India, usually how does it work in India? How does it work for engagement? Like, I know all of our states have different rituals, but what I have known, at least from where I am from, so the girls' side, they would take a few gifts and go to the groom's side, and then they'll have ring exchange and this, right? I think, is it similar everywhere for you all as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so but in China, see what happens here. The groom will present gifts to the bride's family. So they will be giving them gold jewelry, candles, tea leaves is very important there, wine, and lot of expensive gifts there. The boys' side take it to the girls' side. Then what do the girls' side they do? So they will return half of the gifts and show that okay, we have accepted your proposal, and then they say okay, we want to have a good relationship with the groom's family as well. So it is another way.
If they don't interested, they return all of them. Okay, nice.
Now for the main part, for what all of you are waiting for, education in China. So China is one of the largest education system in the world. So in June 2024, there were 13.53 million students taking the National Higher Education Entrance Exam called the Gaokao in China. So the Ministry of Education estimates that about 99% of the school-age children have received universal 9-year basic education. Now, what is the 9-year basic education? Before I go into this, what do you see in this picture? What do you see in the picture?
Students are studying, maybe.
So these are
Students are there on the table.
yes, and then you see all so many books in there, right? So these are like how the public school. So in China, all schools, most schools are all public schools, and there are a handful of private international schools. But everyone prefers going to public school, and they are of very good quality. So the government of China, what they have decided in, I think in 1986, I think Miss Helen can give us more information once she starts her PPT. But the 9-year compulsory education policy in China, it enables students over 6 years old nationwide to have free education at both primary schools, so from grade 1 to 6, and the secondary school 7 to 9, from grade 7 to 9. So that is free. All they have to pay is for uniform or for the books. Rest is all given by the government. And secondary school, but grade 10 to 12 is not free, and people can choose what they want to do after that. There are different courses available after that. And the Gaokao exam that we spoke about, the Gaokao is very, very competitive. Students prepare for it like the entire day they are in school. Some of them, like today I was speaking with my students who are from China, who studied in local schools, and they were telling me that they would be in school till almost 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night, finishing their homework and trying to get very good high scores.
along with the teachers, ma'am?
Yes, along with the teachers. The teachers, but it's not the same. Like the class teachers would be, it is very much similar to how we have in India. So the main teacher or your class teacher will be there, and then you have all different subject teachers. Students stay in the classroom, and the teachers they keep coming in, changing. And after, like they have some 5 classes in the morning and 4 classes in the afternoon. So around 5 something, 5, 6, they finish. After which they have their dinner. Most of the high school students stay back in school, boarding school. And after that, they have their extra study time. So different teachers, they take turns to come and invigilate them, monitor them. So these teachers will be there in the school till the students finish their homework. They stay in the classroom. Now the class size is large. So here it shows 40 to 60, but it can be from 30 to 50 as well. So it's a big classroom. And this is how they arrange. Very similar to how we have in India. So they have a fixed chair and desk, and then they keep changing their seats regularly.
They have to wear uniforms, right? Like in India?
Yes, they have uniforms. Like the local schools, they have uniforms. And something more interesting today, because in Melbourne, I have few students at Trinity College, so the pathway program for University of Melbourne. So today, my students were telling me that they come in the morning before the class starts. They have to read. So you see the 20 to 30-minute reading session. So it's compulsory. In the morning, once they come, they have to read out loud. They have to read out. So reading and understanding is, so they have practice reading English, reading Chinese text loud. So my students were telling me that if they don't say it out loud, their teachers will scold them. They say, you have to be confident enough to say it out loud. We should be able to hear it. So
Okay,
you see the little girl here as well?
Yeah.
Of them started reading loudly at a time, ma'am.
Maybe they would call one by one, I think. Yeah.
That's why the others can listen. Otherwise, it's not possible to listen properly.
To listen to them, yeah,
Yes.
right. Then like I told you about the self-study, which happens in the evening. So my students were saying that they would stay in school till 10 o'clock at night to complete their homework. And they used to have a lot of homework. And very competitive again. And a lot of subjects. They have, their major subjects will be Chinese, English, maths. These will be the other 3 major subjects, and then you can choose the other 3 subjects that you will have to do. So depending on what your interests are in. So the 3, altogether 6 subjects would be there in Kaukau. So in the year 12 exam, and you would have to do really well. So if you want to go into a very good university, so the total score is around 750. You need to get at least till 680 in order to get into a very good school.
In public schools, from which class English is taught?
Right now, I think Miss Helen would be able to say that. I don't know the latest trend about that. Miss Helen?
Yeah. I will give you this information a little bit late.
Okay.
Okay.
No problem. Teacher development. So teacher development, they have a lot of conferences, a lot of teacher training going on always continuously, and they keep their teachers updated to the latest technologies. The top teachers who have a lot of experience, they keep guiding the younger teachers in order to make it better, and many seminars for the teachers there.
Regularly, ma'am?
Yes, regularly. Now, friends, colleagues, neighbors, and strangers. So, Mr. Arvind had asked me to talk about the people there as well.
Yeah.
So, what I would like to say is I have met the most beautiful people in China in my past 17 years there, always ready to help. Like, for an example, I would like to say if you're lost, you don't know where to go, if you ask a stranger for direction, they will take you they will first show you on the map how to go. If you don't know, they will actually, I have had many instances where people have walked with me and taken me to the address where I want to go. And they are so caring. You go in the lift, and if they look at Indian kids and they love the eyes. They like big eyes, so they would look at my kids when we go there, and then you say, "Oh, so beautiful eyes." They'll talk to you. There's no hesitation. They'll always talk to anyone, and if you can speak in Chinese, all the more friendly. They will talk to you. They will ask you about how you're doing, and once my daughter had some makeup on for a drama that she was participating in, and then this our society guard, he got so scared. He's like, "Are you okay? Did you get hurt?" It's like, who does that? So much of love for anyone, so much of care. And colleagues, lot of fun in school, lot of fun. Very helpful, and a very I would like to say a close-knit family. That's what I had experienced back there in China. Now the next slide, I'll show you some pictures of what of my life in China, of the school which I worked with Miss Helen. So you see here, this is an activity which was done with Miss Helen's school. This one as well, we were all dressed up in Chinese clothing. This is Diwali event which we had done in school. So I had taken all the Indian clothes, and all the parents and students, they dressed up in Indian wear, and then we clicked photos. We took food, Indian food there, and we celebrated that. This is a Bollywood dance that we had done with the students, with the teachers in another school that I worked for. This is a picture of my son wearing the traditional Chinese clothing. This is a picture of me with the local school, which I went through, Miss Helen's school. So I used to go and teach there. So this is a picture from that, with beautiful memory. This is, we had international festivals in Miss Helen's school. And at that time, we also celebrated the Mexican Day of Death. So that is a festival in Mexico. So we celebrated that as well there. And with that, I come to the end of my presentation. Big thanks to Mr. Arvind and the Margdarshak program for giving me this wonderful opportunity.